However, that feeling that the other people are experiencing is also real, which is that stop gaslighting us right now. And if you keep doing it, I've gotten emails from, and I'm not a pro-Trump person at all, from people who saying, if people keep doing this, I'm thinking about rage voting for Trump. That is a terrible outcome.
So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all to people who are in this country illegally?
I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being public health. Period.
So, no, President Trump is not afraid. I love those sentiments. Maybe he got talking points about the Sleepy Joe portion and got confused. We're talking about President Trump, the same man that got shot in the ear, stood up, put his hand up and said, fight.
The Kamala love affair might be backfiring. CNN has some commentary on this, panicking that all of this honeymooning is a little too much for some of those ex-Biden people or the continuing Biden people. There was a whole group of Democrats who loved Joe Biden, said he represented them. He shared their vigor and their capabilities in their talking and thinking and walking and speaking. And now that they've abandoned him, now that Kamala just strolls on in there like some new hot piece right into some politician's office and then suddenly, just captures their attention, they're wondering what gives. They were loyal to Joe and now they're being demanded to abandon him. It's not going to work out well for him. There's going to be a contingent who are very upset. This guy explains how it's working.
And my friends in the media and my friends who are in the Democratic Party need to grapple with this point, and I know that they won't, or I fear that they won't, which is that there's a whole swath of America out there who feels like they have been systematically gaslit about Joe Biden and his age. Yep. There have been segments, there have been people who work in this building who have written browbeating things about the New York Times, even polling on the issue of whether Biden is too old. Like, that's pretty controversial, New York Times. I'm not sure you should do that. It's in March of this year that between Robert Hur coming out and people such as Kamala Harris saying that Robert Hur's thing was clearly politically motivated, she said, and obviously inaccurate. She said that in February. So to come off after all of this, and then suddenly a bad debate, everything gets scrambled up, and then Kamala comes and we see 1 week of flowing and gushing, yes, reflection of the euphoria that is real that people are experiencing. And I actually am happy that people are experiencing euphoria. However, that feeling that the other people are experiencing is also real, which is that stop gaslighting us right now. And if you keep doing it, I've gotten emails from, and I'm not a pro-Trump person at all, from people who saying, if people keep doing this, I'm thinking about rage voting for Trump. That is a terrible outcome.
Yeah. No, it's a great outcome. They should. Okay. They've been lied to over and over again by the Democrats. Literally. They came out, Kamala was a giant part of this, and said Joe was outstanding. Then they forced him out. Pelosi, Biden, Clooney, the Disney princesses, all of them got together, threw him out, forced him to go, threatened him with Lord knows what, and now he's gone. Now they're just going to turn their attention to Kamala, who many people said was terrible up until this point, and just forget everything about her? Well, Trump's not going to allow people to forget so easily. He posted this one over on Truth, reminding us about who Kamala actually is.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her.
You're considered the most liberal United States senator. Well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
We are going to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross borders criminals. That's correct. That is correct.
A lot of the signs at the rally you just held were people standing there saying, abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Is that a position that you agree with?
We need to probably think about starting from scratch.
So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all to people who are in this country illegally?
I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being public health. Period.
Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police? It's actually wrong and backward to think that more police officers will create more safety. We need to get rid of money bail.
Convicted, in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation. I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. I have always supported Medicare for all. I was very happy to sign on to Bernie's bill, and I give Bernie, frankly, a lot of credit. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should.
Amazing ad. No question she's in banning of fracking, in favor of banning fracking. I think that will be a good one to hit replay on over and over and over again for those people in Pennsylvania and some of those Rust Belt states. So it's going to be very interesting how this continues to play after this is repeated over and over and over again throughout the election cycle. And Kamala is now playing the president role. Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen, but Kamala is meeting with foreign heads of state now. So this is what it looked like when her and Netanyahu got together over there somewhere in Washington. She's playing president now, I guess,
emphasize a
or nominee.
Commitment to the security of Israel, while
shaking
also
hands.
Criticisms of Israel's military conduct.
They're going to sit down and have a
Vice
conversation.
President finished her remarks by denouncing both Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and calling for unity in the U.S.
Like, I don't think we saw this with Joe, right? Did we see this with Joe Biden, I guess is the question? I don't think so. I didn't see that with Joe.
Had a frank and constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I told him that I will always ensure that Israel is able to defend itself, including from Iran and Iran-backed militias such as Hamas and Hezbollah. From when I was a young girl, collecting funds to plant trees for Israel.
Oh, gosh. All right. So that's her. We have a summary of this meeting. Trump reported on what happened ultimately. Says Netanyahu had a terrible and insulting meeting in D.C. with Kamala, who also refused to preside over Congress during his speech, which happens to be an obligation of the VP. Rarely has such a thing happened. Her ineptness will greatly prolong the war and delay the hostage release. The same people that embarrassed us in Afghanistan with their gross incompetence are the ones who are telling Israel not to fight any longer with Hamas. Forget October 7th, they say. Trump writes, any Jewish person that votes for Kamala or a Democrat should immediately have their head examined. Likewise, Catholics who are being persecuted by this administration should not be voting for radical left Kamala. As a Catholic, that is true. Vote Trump 2024, make America great again. That's true. Very true statement, very accurate statement from the president. So he also met with Netanyahu as a former head of state and the current Republican nominee. So I guess Kamala's meeting with him as the nominee or as the vice president or as the president, because I didn't see Joe Biden meet with Netanyahu. I don't think that happened, did it?
Now I'm on it. Come on in. Come on in. Bunch of the best part. The greatest dinner I've ever had. Come on, let's get a good.
They did meet.
Great.
They did meet. Biden and Netanyahu did meet. I think it was the day after the speech. So the Biden administration ratcheted up the pressure, but I guess I didn't see it in the media because nobody cares about it. So that's what's happening. So Netanyahu's coming out, rallying support for everybody. A lot of people are wondering who the vice presidential nominee is going to be for Kamala. Here is what they reported, saying that the McCain family in Arizona, Meghan McCain, she's wanting Mark Kelly. They want Mark Kelly because they say that Mark Kelly will deliver Arizona. Well, I don't know about that. Mark Kelly, once you start listening to this dude talk, it's like, dude, you know, astronaut stuff is probably awesome. Navy pilot stuff is great, but this political stuff is, I think, a little bit outside his wheelhouse. It says Kelly is considered to be on the short list for potential running mates, which I think would actually make a more formidable ticket than this guy. Pete Buttigieg, a VP favorite for Kamala, which I think we support Pete Buttigieg for Kamala's VP. Top contender. Joe Biden announced this month that he was stepping down from the race through his support behind Harris. Many names have been floated. Whitmer would also be, I think, pretty bad. Shapiro would be dangerous because of the deliverance of Pennsylvania. Bashar of Kentucky, he seems like a pretty, competent, reasonable dude. I think that they might make him it's gonna be like a co-presidency between the two of them. So I think he might be concerning. But polls say Booty is at the top of the list. A poll conducted by PBS says 21% of voters say they want Harris to choose Booty. Otherwise, they say it's Mark Kelly. I don't think Booty brings in any particular state. On Thursday, the University of New Hampshire, although Mark Kelly would, released the results of the poll. Booty's number 1, Kelly's number 2, 7% for Shapiro. And I think Shapiro, right, is Jewish. So that might be a problem for them because they have to balance this Jewish-Palestine fissure within their own party. The Fair Vote organization found that Booty was top choice. So we'll see if that happens. And we're asking ourselves about debates. Alina Abba is in the house and she is saying Trump's not worried about these debates. debates. He's not scared about any of this stuff.
I'm literally at a loss, Martha. I was laughing while I listened to that for somebody to ever say that President Trump is afraid. I don't know if you haven't been watching the news for the last 3 years, but there is one thing you cannot call President Trump, and that is a fearful person, especially after what has transpired for him for the last 2 weeks. So I'm insulted and offended by those comments and remarks. Secondly, I echo your sentiments. He's not only not afraid, bring it on, and bring it on under American terms, not under CNN and your stations with your terms and mics off because you're afraid. Number one. Number two, we've got a vice president who is not the candidate yet. You're right, Martha. And also, by the way, everyone's getting excited. This is the same person that never went to the border, never did anything. There is nothing to be afraid about. She has a record. Her record speaks for itself. It's a big zero. So no, President Trump is not afraid. I love those sentiments. Maybe he got talking points about the Sleepy Joe portion and got confused. We're talking about President Trump, the same man that got shot in the ear, stood up, put his hand up and said, fight. They're talking about the wrong person. One thing he's not is afraid. Bring it on.
So what about Congressman Crow's point that on June 27th, there hadn't been conventions yet? So why not have this between these two candidates even before the convention, even though nothing was scheduled before that convention? But
I think if you look at the campaign statement, it's very clear. Let's know who we're running against. It's not our fault that the Democratic Party has completely fallen apart, that they literally had donors pulling out, and now she's rejoicing. She's rejoicing over money that was withheld because the president that she worked with for the last 3 years utterly failed the American people. And that's where I think the campaign says it perfectly. Give us the details. Let us know who we're running against because we're wasting the American people's time.
Well,
and this last-minute switcheroo.
We already saw one debate against a candidate who ended up to not be the candidate.
Exactly.
So it's understandable that there's a bit of hesitation. This is the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, saying that he thinks that J.D. Vance may not make it to November 5th.
Why would they even give his...
There's nothing that Trump hates more than dull people. And, J.D., I think, stands for just dull. And so he is not doing well on the stump for Donald Trump. He's hurting him. He may or may not make it to November 5th, J.D. Vance.
So he says there's going to be another scramble coming up. Alina, what do you say to that?
I'm not sure what they're speaking about.
Yeah,
We've heard
nonsense.
and seen through polling, through numbers, through donors, that there's full support of the Vance-Trump ticket. Let's be very clear. JD is a wonderful person. I know him personally. I'm sure you do as well, too, Martha. He's strong. He's young. He's got energy. And while they're trying to throw stones, it's frankly because they are now in a crisis. They don't know who their candidate's going to be. And we're seeing people backtrack like George Clooney and Obama. These are the people that their side is listening to. It's a disgrace. And I don't blame them. They got to grasp at straws. It's desperate.
We'll see where it goes.
Alina Ava in the house. And so that is a nice summary of Trump's posture. Not afraid, not scared, ready to go. We just want to debate the actual nominee because they keep changing it. Trump already had beaten Joe Biden. The referee had already raised his hand. Donald Trump wins. Kamala comes out of the rafters with a ladder right over Trump's head. Wah! And the Democrats are like, whoa, why don't you debate her? Like, well, is she the same person or is someone else going to jump out with a ladder too, you weird freaks? So how about you just settle on your nominee since you did a debate and switch and let us know once you've got it settled. Then we'll schedule the debates so we stop wasting our time. Okay, we have a country to save. We don't have time to have you guys have tryouts for your Democratic nominees. Pick your player and then let's go. So I agree with Trump and we'll be looking forward to the debate when it happens.